So I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker. Isabelle Peretz is a professor of psychology at the University of Montreal. Her leadership has been recognized through an endowed Casavant chair in 2004 and a Canada Research Chair in 2007. Her research focuses on the musical potential of ordinary people, its neural correlates, its heritability, and its specific relation to language. She is renowned on the biological foundations of music. And most recently, Dr. Peretz has been awarded the Bridging Divide Scholar of Excellence, which allows us to be with her, for us to spend time with her at TMU over the balance of the year. This time will allow her to interact with other scholars affiliated with the Bridging Divides program, and for her to work with my team on collaborative projects concerning the use of song to support the integration of newcomers. And that brings us to the topic of her keynote. And I will ask you to come to the front, Isabelle, and you can show us your title.
So the immigration is in continuing race, and it won't diminish. We know it's a big issue for us. It's related to climate changes as well, and we benefit from the 2 Indian summers we had recently, but there are also catastrophes, as you know, as we saw in Spain, for example, recently. We have an aging population, and we need newcomers, especially the young ones, and if they're educated, it's even better. But they are in need of assistance. I mean, beside the basic needs we don't provide, they need to communicate, to integrate the workplace. And this is where we can help, and I think group singing is really part of the solution, as I suppose most of you think it is. And on a personal note, I'm personally really engaged in this process because I am the daughter of refugees, not here, it was in Romania. We had a pandemic, and everybody saw the singing on the balcony. That is the spontaneous, universal kind of reaction that appeared in case of being trapped in a case of fear, I would say. And also the other advantage is that science was perceived as very important because it provided the vaccine. So if you combine the two, that's what we do. We try to have a scientific attitude or perspective and provide evidence-based research with singing, which is in our nature. This is really something that is used broadly. And I wish I could attend this kind of concert, but I will share this with you because it's really powerful. And these people are foreigners. They don't know each other. In the concert hall, they don't know each other. Yet, they sing together. What I was talking about is the fact that singing is universal, spontaneous, and also I like to stress it is the most widespread musical behavior. And curiously, it hasn't been that much studied in neuroscience. I won't cover that, as I said, but I'd like to mention that. It is social and it is healthy. And so these are the points I will address now. For social inclusion, there are a few facts that I like you to know. Is across several societies, I mean more than several, it's 1,000 societies around the world. It has been observed that singing often involves simultaneous coordinated vocalization between people, that is, singing together. And the group is more prevalent than solo. And it happens in religious settings, in dance, in mourning, so it's in social context. The only situation when it's occurring in solo is when you use the lullabies, the mother and the infant. Still, there are two, but they are not singing together. I like also to mention that the song structure favors group singing. Singing is different from speaking from a number of aspects, and I like to emphasize that. The fact that it has a fixed pitch for fusion, harmonization, and imitation. The beat for anticipation and synchronization. The beat allows you to anticipate what will come next, and also to being able to learn and to have some pleasure. I'll get back to that later. And synchronization. As you all know, we synchronize when we sing together, and it can be extremely precise. Also, we use repetition. We don't do that in speaking. We try to avoid repetition, but in singing, we do use repetition. Why? As you did with the two words, is because it engages everyone in the songs. That's one part of the explanation. Of course, it's always more complex than that. And also the emotion contagion that is part of that is associated to the song structure. This has allowed to develop, this has been studied also in evolutionary perspective, and I do invite you to read about this. These are very interesting papers published in Behavior and Brain Science by Patrick Savage and also Sam Mayer in 2021. And the major ingredient for us is really group cohesion. That is the most important aspect, but it's also part of the infant care. So it starts very early in infancy until the end of life. It is also a tool for social inclusion, as I said, and it is evidence-based. As Frank was mentioning, it's really solid research behind a few facts I will highlight soon. Not all of these aspects, but this is now quite old. It's more than 15 years ago that it has been published, that if you sing together with someone else, you will cooperate more after singing together than if you are out of sync by just changing, the way you hear the other one singing the same, supposed to be singing the same song. So to cooperate is really the solution we all want to see, and it happens more after singing together in time, in sync, than out of sync. And it has been replicated in several studies, so it's not the only situation where it has been observed. So this is a very important finding that I'd like you to remember, because this is really a big motivation for using this. This is another important discovery in our field, is that when you listen to the music you like, you do release dopamine. And by inference now, we know that when you play music, you drum with a partner who is in sync or not, you activate the same kind of system, which is supposed to be associated to a release of dopamine. And for learning, this is another very important aspect, I think, that is an ingredient of why it could help newcomers to communicate better, is the fact that learning is social. And it is human, in presence. The idea is that why it should help, this is really a widespread idea, that it is naturally integrated in songs, that it shares auditory vocal learning system and the overlap in the brain. I'll explain to you why overlap in the brain seems to be very important. I think everyone believes that it helps. That because in the brain there is overlap, it helps, and that was proposed by Annie Patel a while ago, and that's so nicely called the opera hypothesis. And the idea is really music drives neuroplasticity is a sophisticated term to say learning by changing the brain. In speech processing networks, when there is overlap in the brain regions, because it will bring precision. So the conclusion is really, since speech shares these networks with music, speech processing benefits. Well, I have argued the opposite for a long time. So I cannot say that I share those ideas at all. I mean, we are in very good terms, Annie Patel and myself, it's not that. And we discuss a lot, but for me, music, for me, and I provided evidence, it's not because there is a brain overlap that it means that it is sharing, because we know it has overlap, and we know that, for example, in aphasia, there is a damage to common regions most of the time on the left side of the brain. It doesn't mean that they cannot be separate. And I like to illustrate that because it has been illustrated in aphasia, but we keep forgetting those kind of data. So the idea is really that it is distinct. We have the two channels to communicate, but they may have evolved for different reasons. And I think singing together is there for a different reason than communication with speech. So, yeah, it's not because they are separate and distinct that they cannot help each other. And of course, two things that we need to remember. Singing is slower than speaking, much slower. And singing is more enjoyable. And that's very important. And also it has been shown that the pleasure really, I mean, you don't need to have evidence. It's quite obvious that if you are happy and you enjoy the music you listen to, of course you're going to perform better afterwards. It has been called the Mozart effect, but it's well known that really if you like what you do, but it has been demonstrated in a lab, so it's good to know that this really is, for me, this is the most important ingredient. It's really the pleasure, the reward that you get from singing, and also that will, of course, spread to the other ingredients. And also the fact that you believe in it. So that's a big part of it. Of course, it needs to be demonstrated. So now for the health part, I mean, all the aspects that the well-being, I mean, it's synonymous. Healthy or well-being is quite synonymous. It's part of the definition of the World Health Organization, because now it is described as a complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So this is really what we are talking about. And there is a revival of the use of music as medicine in general. So what are the health benefits? It's just a summary of what has been presented. It improves mood, and as I said, it's related to the reward system and the release of dopamine. This you cannot really easily measure in the saliva, so it's more invasive. It reduces stress, cortisol, in some studies. I'll show you which ones. And it increases oxytocin release in some. It reduces pain thresholds. That has been really documented. You can hold your hand longer in ice if you have sung in a choir. And the larger the choir, the longer you can sustain having the hand in the ice. And also I'd like to add that what was said, that improved cardiorespiratory functions and probably other aspects. And these are the dream results we all dream to have, or at least I dream to have those results. It's Arla and Frank, and they compare the solo to the group and show that, after a single, I think it's a single session in all people, and there are very few, they feel, of course, better, but that's not new, than solo. They also have, let me see, I have that here, I think. It is the oxytocin that is increased. Oxytocin is associated to affiliation. It is also associated to a decrease in cortisol, which is the stress or hormone. So we all dream to have those results. I hope we will. And also what we have shown actually in Montreal is that it does increase because the respirations slows down, the volume and the ventilation increase. So we suppose there is more oxygen to the brain. So all these are huge benefits of singing and singing together especially. And one aspect that hasn't been really documented, but I think it's very important, that you cannot do anything else. If you play music with others or if you sing together, you cannot think of your worries, nothing. It's absorption. So this is a very important ingredient too that we should keep in mind when we prescribe singing. So the proof of concept, we have run and finished a proof of concept study last year. Curiously, it's really curious. There are no really good, by our standards, study out there. I think we are the first to really conduct this kind of study. We did it in Montreal, and as you can see with Don and Fida.
Difficile de trouver meilleur morceau pour s'initier à la chanson québécoise.
Le tour du monde. Le tour du monde.
Chaque samedi matin, quelques dizaines de nouveaux arrivants participent aux répétitions du Chœur des Bienvenus à l'Université du Québec à Montréal. Ils viennent de pays variés comme l'Inde, l'Ukraine ou la Colombie, mais ils ont tous en commun la volonté d'apprendre la langue.
J'aime venir ici. Et j'apprends le français.
This helped me to start to speak in French, because before I was afraid to speak in French, but after the choir I understood that French is pretty easy.
Mais le Chœur des Bienvenus n'est pas qu'une chorale, c'est aussi une recherche scientifique.
Ce qu'on veut montrer, c'est qu'effectivement, chanter en français, ça facilite l'intégration, ça facilite la francisation, la prononciation.
À toutes les 8 semaines, les participants sont soumis à des tests pour mesurer leur progression en français.
On les évalue sur le langage, sur la répétition par exemple. On les évalue aussi sur les interactions. On filme les interactions et on calcule le nombre d'interactions qu'ils vont avoir et s'ils vont parler en français ou dans leur langue maternelle. Mon but vraiment ultime, c'est que le ministère d'intégration et de francisation intègre les chorales ou les groupes musicaux dans ses cours de francisation.
Mais la chorale n'inculque pas que des notions linguistiques aux participants.
Ça permet d'introduire ces personnes immigrantes à la culture québécoise. Félix Leclerc, Gilles Vigneault, mais les Cowboys fringants aussi. Donc, dans les cours de chorale, les chansons qui sont interprétées, tout le contexte social est aussi présenté aux choristes.
Le projet sera de retour l'année prochaine.
C'est quoi votre chanson préférée?
Mon chanson préférée, je pense que c'est Le temps d'une chanson.
Les participants continueront d'apprendre le français, le temps de quelques chansons.
Le temps d'une chanson.
We had a waitlist group, that is people who wanted to be part of the choir but had to wait, so that they didn't have this kind of activity in between. But they were equally motivated, of course, to enter into the choir, and they did. We did give them the opportunity to join the choir. We did measure them after, etc. But I will not present the data. What is important to remember is that we have a very important snack break when we measure different things during the evaluation. They had it every day because it's important for them, of course, to communicate. And we don't have really good evidence yet that they are learning French. They do think And it must be related to confidence, if you agree, rather than facts, that they improved, but actually the data don't show that so far. We'll see. It always depends on the tool you are using, of course. So we are planning to adjust the tools and measure to conduct a controlled trial study here in Toronto as well as in Montreal, hopefully starting in January, maybe a little bit later. And we will randomize in 3 groups. We're going to have a weight group again, a choir, of course. And this time we discussed and we think we're going to use a conversation group about music. So I know it's cheesy, but I can't resist. It's not me, I didn't write that, but I'd like to mention this is music, a universal power to bring people together, which provides humanity with a set of tools to create a more harmonious future. So on these words, I will end my talk. Thank you.